Welcome, Rebecca, to the Texas Book Club. We are excited to have you here. You're going to be talking about your book. So let's start off with, why did you write it?
Why did I write Deadly Time? I think I wrote it because I wanted to write my deepest, darkest fear. I wanted to explore my deepest fear. As a mom, that was, at the time, that was the abduction of one of my children. How would I feel? What would I do? What was my contingency plan? I think I did that in this story. It is about a girl that is abducted and what she does and also what her mom does. But I think that's the reason I wrote it to begin with. It was a bad dream. It started out a bad dream. The girl's on the beach in my dream, and there was a bad guy in the dream, and that started it. And so I began to explore those fears.
Okay. Now, your book is set in England. Why?
I love England. I am a crazy Anglophile. There's a lot of us, I understand, and I actually don't read a lot of American authors who are mystery writers. I read American authors who write their mysteries set in Britain, like Elizabeth George and Deborah Crombie and Martha Grimes. But I love England, and I had written this story, and I was open to setting this story any place in the world, but I had to have a place where the sun set over the ocean, and there were cliffs, and those cliffs might or might not have caves. And I found this perfect spot in Cornwall. It has everything, plus a lot of atmosphere, good atmosphere.
Okay. Help me understand your book cover a little bit. You have a doll that looks pretty well beaten up. Why is that on the cover?
That doll was found by my book designer. In the beginning, the doll had wonky eyes and no color, and it looked like a really seriously horrifying doll. And I had her change it up a little bit because the book is not a horror. There's no paranormal involved. But I used the doll because I wanted to portray the dread of what happens in the story with the girl's abduction. And when a child is hurt or kidnapped or killed, people tend to put memorials where the event happened. Dolls, teddy bears, candles, and that's the reason why I kept the doll. The designer went and put a tombstone behind the doll. That's a little creepy, but I love the colors. I love the time that's in the picture. Of course, it's in the book. It's not used for cooking. There's a spider in the picture. That's very, very appropriate because the whole point of the killer is he's trying to lure the girl's mother to him in the story. So there's everything in that picture has something to do with the story. So
okay. You say that it's not a horror story. It is fictional, of course. But how would you classify the book?
I would say that it is a psychological suspense. You, as a reader, get into the mind of the killer and the mind of the victim throughout the book. And you traipse through these jungles of terrifying thought that we would say is the killer's mind. And then you also are in the mind of the victim as she struggles to escape. And I think it's a page turner. You're going to want to find out what happens quickly, it's kind of terrifying. I think a lot of people have said that they can't put it down, that they're staying up late at night, and it's all my fault, and things like that. So I think psychological thriller or psychological suspense is what we would classify it as.
Okay.
It's not a cozy.
Now, a lot of people know to write from things that they know about. In this case, you had traveled to England, you found Cornwall. But what about the characters? How do you relate to the characters, or are the characters from people you know?
There are a lot of people I know that I mix and match and mix up and put in my stories. I use a lot of what I know, people I know. My mother, in fact, when she read this story, she said, "Where in the heck do you get all these characters?" Well, Mom, you're one of them. She didn't recognize herself. That's good. Or whatever. She's a good person in the story. But the characters, nobody that I know would be able to recognize themselves in this story. I think it helps to put that in a different country, of course, and so it would be hard to recognize yourself if you're in Texas, that as being somebody who's a miner in Cornwall. But I just know a lot of people, and I like to observe and I like to listen. Sometimes when I'm in a restaurant, I jot down what I overhear in conversation on my napkin, and so I get a lot of these kind of things. A lot of the conversation in the book actually took place someplace in the world at one time or another.
Now, you have another book called The Dry. You want to tell me briefly about it?
The Dry is a historical fantasy set in 1895 West Virginia coal mine country. It's about a little boy who goes in search for his father and discovers him in a world deep underground that's overrun by giant insects.
What is the overall lesson or moral, or what do you want for someone who's read your book to walk away and know or think about?
Well, first of all, I want people to walk away feeling very satisfied with the ending of the book. Satisfied in the sense that the story problems were answered. Satisfied in the sense that there's a completion to the story. There's no feeling that she cut it off in the middle of the action or anything like that. That I've seen in other books occasionally. I feel like I want people to be joyful. It is fiction, and oftentimes in our world, in our real worlds of nonfiction, things are not as they don't end as well. I like a good ending.